Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. We do recommend Spotify over Apple Podcasts these days. A little bit quicker. You can use it on both platforms. And anyway, you can listen to music there too. So check it out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Five Reasons Sports YouTube channel where you can get everything else that we cover. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's in our Discord. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link right there in the description. Click on that. It'll take you right to it, and you'll bypass the Apple upcharge. You pay the $2.99 a month. You can cancel at any time. Why do you want to be on Twitter with all the political stuff and everything else? Just go talk Heat, NBA with fellow Heat fans. That's what they are. That's why they're all neurotic. They're going all day long. They got a draft channel. We got a transaction channel. We've got host updates. Everything is on there. And our guy Adel, who's going to be joining us on this podcast, he's taking care of that draft channel for us while Greg and I work on that transaction channel. So you know you're getting it directly from us and others in the Five Reasons Sports Network. Meet our other hosts. You do that there as well. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. It's Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. Play the conference finals there. We know this Pacers-Knicks thing. Some of you may not want to watch it, but you may want to make some money. So use the code 5. You can also play the Stanley Cup playoffs. Panthers, that was a dud of a performance last night. I watched that from a sports bar. What was that team? That was like the Panthers from 10 years ago. PrizePicks.com. Use the code FIVE. I don't know. I'd play Kachuk over half a goal in Game 7. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, five on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Jase Skolnick on Five Reasons Sports. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. And I have the aforementioned Digital Adel. You can follow him at Digital Adel. Also find him on Playback, where we watch the games, playback.tv/5RSN, and on Off the Floor, as I mentioned. We bring in Adel for draft stuff, but Greg also has his ear to the ground, so he finds out more of this stuff than I do this time of year, so don't listen to me. I can tell you that I probably watch about 6 college basketball games until the tournament. Not that I don't like it. I just honestly don't have time with everything else that's going on. And so Spoelstra said the same thing. He doesn't really watch until the season's over. And then I try to catch up as I hear names and try to figure out players that, based on my 30 years of covering the Heat, I think they would like. That's kind of where I come in here. And sort of when they've gone certain directions and how it's worked. And then, of course, I try to gather what information I can from behind the scenes with the Heat. That's not easy to come from this time of year. Texts are typically not returned. And then you kind of get that sheepish look when you see someone at the arena like, oh, yeah, that's right. I never got back to him for 3 months. Yeah, okay. But it is what it is. I know it's part of the deal. All right, so we're going to go to Greg and we're going to go to Adel, and we're going to start with Greg on players we've heard that the Heat have interest in. Now, again, to be clear, okay, they're going to scout a lot of players, okay? And sometimes teams don't scout the player they end up taking because they're just trying to keep it quiet. And then there's that stupid thing, which I don't understand. And let's start here before we get to these players. I have never gotten this, okay? And a lot of things I don't get. You can see from the gray hair in my beard. What is a promise about? I've never understood the idea when they say on draft day, well, he had a promise to go at this spot from this team. Why would a team promise something they can't guarantee because they don't know if the player is going to slip to them? Why would they even telegraph that? Why would they let that leak? I mean, it doesn't seem. It's kind of like when my daughter promises to make her bed and clean the room. Like, I know that's not going to happen, so I'll just give her ice cream. Like, I don't get like what. Tell me why do teams promise? I don't get it.
I can tell you what I think and what I've gathered, not just from the Miami Heat point of view, but like an NBA, NFL, they do the same thing. They have these conversations during interviews and they promise, so to speak, players and stuff like that. A lot of it's smoke and mirrors as well. Like you'll put things out there so teams think you're going to do one thing. Maybe you're going to follow through with it. Maybe you're not. I know also a lot of players with the NIL, like whether they want to go back to college or stay in the draft, if they don't have any kind of intel that they're going to go at a certain spot, they'll end up going back to college. So just like anything else in life, I think it's multifaceted, nuanced, and not straightforward as just this is why this happens.
I got a theory. I think that sometimes teams may promise a player to basically convince them to shut down workouts so that they're not seen and evaluated and talked to from other teams. And that may make teams shy away because they don't get to have that up close personal, kind of time with the player. So maybe that's the vested interest in trying to get them, like, say, hey, we promise we'll pick you here. So if you're happy at that spot, stop working out for other people. Like that's the only reason why I think maybe that becomes a thing. But otherwise, I do kind of think, especially in today's age, it's a little ridiculous. Everyone sees everyone. And I feel like if you want to get in touch with a player, you can. So what does a promise really mean?
And then a lot of times we'll hear the player on draft night say, well, yeah, I talked to this person and they told me they were going to take me and all this kind of stuff. But again, you can't guarantee any of that. So it just seems a little bit silly to me. All right. We've talked about the Heat, where the Heat are, 20th pick in the draft. Of course, that's Golden State's pick. We do not need to belabor the fact that they could have had Cooper Flagg because they couldn't have had Cooper Flagg. We've talked about this. They would have had to have even if they still had to pick that Dallas used, they would have had to have won a coin flip against Chicago. There's no chance in bleep that would have happened. The Heat don't win coin flips typically. Just saying. And then even if that had happened, it's just too many possibilities. Okay, so I get it, 1.8% chance, which actually was less than that because they would have had to win the coin flip before that. But anyway, if we want to make that an indictment of their philosophy, then I guess you can do it if it gets you clicks. Okay, so they have the 20th pick in the draft. And again, Adel, you and I have talked about a lot of different directions that they can go depending on the kind of player they're looking for, and also if they're trading for someone like Kevin Durant. Now, I just want to mention one other thing. Everybody really should check out the episode I did with Kevin Durant a week ago if it was with Kevin Durant, that would have got more downloads. About Kevin Durant a week ago with Gerald Bourguet. He might do it, actually. He might. If I called him out on Twitter for something, he would do it. Gerald Bourguet, who covers the Suns, did with us because very informative about like where Durant is in his career, that his defense is not as bad as it may have looked last year, that is some of the things, his offensive metrics, and also about, what the Suns are actually looking for and whether or not the Heat could meet it or Houston would beat it and all the rest of that. So you should listen to that episode. I'm also going to have Matt Hannafin on in the next couple of days because he went through off the play, went through 20 different variations of trades that could work. So we'll do that specifically. But again, with Durant, without Durant, two different directions they might go. We don't know that right now. So, Greg, give me some players that they've looked at. Let's have Adel go through them.
So, I'll preface this all by saying it's still early. The playoffs are still happening, and there's some teams that aren't even really fully engaged in the draft process. So, it's still early. But I shamelessly, and just so everyone knows, and it can maybe incentivize you to check out Off the Floor and join us there. I put this information there first. So now we bring it to the podcast audience. And there I said that I tend to around this time, and I learned this, and this is kind of a cool thing that Twitter opened the door for. I start shamelessly asking around to agents, to scouts for information. And I actually shamelessly used to ask Ethan for information way back, long ago. So those conversations, along with my own contacts, you start to compile and compare notes. And the one thing that comes up, and I'm glad you mentioned it already, is that a lot of people are kind of convinced in certain circles that this could end up a trade piece, particularly in a Durant situation. They think if a Durant deal were to materialize, it would likely include this year's pick. So that's something I think we should take away from, asking around. And the other part of it, though, when we talk about players, there's three guys whose names come up most. And I don't know if they're going to be there at 20, but I don't think that the mock drafts that are out there today are really it's too early to really be that accurate. So the names that I've heard are, and Adele will tell us more about these players, because truthfully, Ethan, I'm kind of like you. I plug in a lot in the tournament. If the Canes are good, I'll really watch. And I like to watch elite prospects. So I'll check in on a Cooper Flag, that kind of thing. But the three names associated with the Heat: Jase Richardson from Michigan State. That's Jason Richardson's son. Rasheer Fleming out of St. Joe's, and Cam Jones out of Marquette, who they interviewed at the Combine. And I heard that they did come away impressed with talking with him. So those are the three names. It's super early. More names will come, but I think those are good starting points for us when we talk about pick 20.
All right, so let's get to these three players individually. We're going to do that after the break, though. So we want to mention a great sponsor, the 5 Reasons, and then network, and also a 5 on the floor. And then we will have Adele defend the house here. Make sure that the Heat don't let any bad picks get in. And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house? And we're back. Okay, so let's start from the very beginning here, because we've talked about all three of these players previously. Let's do Cam Jones last, because I know you have very definitive views on him. Let's go to the other two.
All right, let's start with Jase Richardson out of Michigan State, the son of Jason Richardson. One of the things that came up whenever I've evaluated Jase Richardson, I probably watched 12 of their games during the season, not including the tournament, is that he looked small. He was listed at 6'3". He came in at just at 6 foot without shoes on at the Combine. So he's a little bit shorter than I expected him to be. And one thing you would have to do with Jase is if he's going to be 6 foot tall and be your lead, he'd have to be your lead facilitator. You'd have to trust that he's going to be able to be your lead facilitator, but he's more of a scorer in college. He showed some facilitating chops. He's able to, to get assists and run your offense and fit in a system. But if he's 6 foot, 178 pounds, he's going to have to be like a lead guard. He's not going to be your scoring shooting guard type wing type. But I do like him. I like his game. He's a very good 3-point shooter, so he can play off ball. He doesn't have to be the only guy on ball. He's got a good handle. He can snake the PNR. He can make reads. So there's a lot of potential there. I like him a lot. It's just the size concern is definitely something you have to factor in when you're worried about drafting him.
All right, so let's look at some of their history with small guards. But I have one question before this, because this would come up. Isaiah Stevens was undrafted, but a player that you really like, right?
Yes.
His primary skill set is passing. He did not get an opportunity this year. It's a different skill set than Jase Richardson. But the question was, is he even big enough to play in the NBA? And he never got that opportunity. And I'm just wondering, it seems like Jase Richardson has obviously much more of a scoring skill set, maybe more talented overall. But I guess my question would be, why would the Heat use their 20th pick in the draft on a small guard when they have a small guard who they wouldn't play?
Jase Richardson has a higher upside. He has a higher athletic profile than Isaiah Stevens. Isaiah Stevens is an elite facilitator. However, his jump shot needed a lot of work. What kept him out of, in my opinion, the rotation or even getting any type of spot minutes and call-up minutes was the fact that he couldn't shoot. And that's not really an indictment on his overall game. It's just when you're at that size, you have to be able to be an elite facilitator and be able to shoot. You have to be able to do both of those things. He's strong enough defensively. Isaiah Stevens was a fighter, and Jase Richardson's the same way. He's very sturdy. He's very crafty, has quick hands. He has a 6'6" wingspan, so he's got long arms. This is one thing I wanted to bring up before. We brought it up in the other podcast episode, the prototype for the next great Heat guard, that episode. Wingspan is more important than height. Like Steph Curry is an outlier in terms of wingspan because his is only 6'3", and he's only, 6'2", 6'3" himself. But most of the elite guards have a wingspan that's like over 6'7". Jase Richardson's right there. It's very close, 6'6" wingspan, 8.2 inch standing reach. His hands are pretty big, 9.5 inch hand size. So he'd be able to make it work. He's good at finishing in the lane because of that athleticism that he has, and he has excellent body control. So he's just a different type of player than Isaiah Stevens. Isaiah Stevens relies more on floaters, for example, when he goes to the basket, more than he does. Jase Richardson's got more body control, up and unders, able to finish strong at the basket because he's more athletic.
All right. So Greg, to that, go ahead, continue.
My big question on this is, can Jase Richardson and Tyler Hero play in the same backcourt? And can you get away with that? And if the answer is no, like Ethan said, I think that a small guard here is probably, I don't know that it's the move unless he's really that talented of a player. And, maybe you do pick an all-star at 20 and he's that kind of engine of an offense type. But boy, I mean, to be 6 foot, I didn't hear that nugget until now, Adel. That's tough. That we've talked about them not really loving to stack the roster with diminutive point guards, we'll call them. And he's not necessarily a point guard, but he's diminutive in today's basketball for sure. So that it's a little, I think some of these other names may be, and Jace could go earlier too, but I think some of these other names may be more likely or make more sense. We'll see.
I have to agree.
Go ahead, Danilo.
Well, I have to agree with Greg because you can't go into that backcourt if you keep Tyler Hero and you have him with Davion Mitchell, Isaiah Stevens, and Jase Richardson.
Oh my God. 6'4" and under team. Yeah. I smelled like it. You'd have one of them at the 4. Yeah. And I don't know though that's the direction. I mean, look, they had an elite 6 foot point guard who made the Hall of Fame. Looking back at Tim Hardaway, I'm always kind of thinking, how did he do that? Because it was one thing in Golden State when, crossover and all the rest of that stuff. And he
put him in the post.
Mullen. I mean, he played like a running back in Miami, knuckleball jumper. He didn't even have a clean jumper. Like if you looked at Timmy's game once he got to Miami, how is he effective? Like you talk about like Jimmy getting the most out of his ability, but Hardaway after the knee injuries, like I don't know how they got out of him what they did. Honestly, I always give him immense credit for that. He's just tough. He was just tough. He was he that Chicago point guard thing. Anyway, okay, let's get to Rasheer Fleming now.
Rasheer Fleming's a dynamic wing talent, man. When you look at his measurables, and he's only 20 years old, he's 6'9", 232 pounds. He's got a 7'6" wingspan, 9 inch standing reach. His hands are big, 9.5 inch hands. The guy's over 40% from 3. Point of attack defensive ability, finishing at the rim. He's able to put rim pressure for you. He can slash. His basketball IQ is a little worrisome to me. His handle's a little worrisome to me because on defense, he jumps at everything, dude. Pump fakes, ball fakes. He can get out of position for you. But point of attack, he's strong. So that's good. There's always going to be some minuses when you're picking at 20. But if you talk about a guy that they could get their hands on and spoke and maximize, huge upgrade over Haywood Highsmith. That's a dynamic wing talent to add to the organization.
Okay, now before Greg jumps in here, though, like it doesn't sound to me like he's going to be there. Am I wrong on that? Like it sounds to me like he's going to sneak into the top 15. Greg?
I'm kind of with you on that. And Jase Richardson could go earlier too. Like I'm trying to find, there was a mock draft here on the New York Times that I think that they posted through The Athletic, and they've got Rasheer Fleming at 27. So I guess it's possible, But like, there's like, if you look at some of the other more notable mock drafts out there, there's a lot of people that have him going higher than 20.
He'll go.
What do you
teams.
think, Adel?
He'll go into
Okay,
teams.
so this is a player they're gonna have if they want him. They're gonna have to move up for him. I don't.
They won't do
Most likely, I don't see them doing that. They don't have the second round. We're gonna have to start a whole conversation again, but they don't have the second round equity to be able to just throw a pick to move up a few spots. Nor do they have the contract that would make sense for a team to necessarily do that. So I like him as a player. I'm in terms of what I've seen. I watched, I saw him play twice maybe, but I watched some YouTube stuff on him. He does look like the kind of athletic profile that they need, and that again Spo would be able to maximize. I just don't think he's going to be there. And then I think we're going to start to hear that. Well, even if they kept their pick, they would be 15th, and they could have taken him there. And we know where that's going on draft night. Okay, now the most controversial one, Cam Jones, who's from Marquette. So let's just start there. The Heat have a predilection for two schools under Pat Riley. It's Kentucky and Marquette. He said he wasn't taking any more Duke players, regardless of what Nick might want after the Justice thing. Has he? I don't know. He hasn't, right? He hasn't.
No.
And then the years that he didn't take the Kentucky player, the years that Heat fans are screaming about. Although Tyler turned out pretty good for his draft spot, but we get into Maxey, we get into Quickly, we get into some of the others who were available at those spots. I mean, they didn't have a shot at Shea, right? So we don't have to. But basically, the entire league is Kentucky guards now. So essentially, you can say that about every team. If they just taken a Kentucky guard first, you probably Booker. Of course, we know that would have gone fine. I actually resurrected Malik Monk's career single-handedly, if you recall, because he was not very good for a large portion of his career. And I actually tweeted from the arena, he's the one Kentucky guard that didn't pan out, and he scored 34 against the Heat that night, and has been an effective player and has gotten a new contract since. So there you go. Okay, Adele, Cam Jones though, Marquette. They've had Dwayne, worked out okay. They traded for Jimmy. They had Jay Crowder, right?
Right.
Like, and there's an archetype of a Marquette player that is also tough. That program, regardless of who, I know Crean was there, now he's not, but that the program has a certain, toughness to it. It's Milwaukee. It's just like it's kind of they'll guard. Okay, they'll guard.
They will.
But you have an issue with Cam Jones for them, right?
I do. I mean, Cam Jones fits kind of what you're looking for, but he came in smaller than expected. He was listed at 6'6". He came in at 6'3". He's 202.4 pounds. He'll pass the body fat test. The guy's rocked up. He's in shape, man. But
aren't those Dwayne's measurables when he came out of school?
So whenever Dwayne Wade came out of school, he was 6'3", 212,
okay.
But he had a 6'10" wingspan.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Cam Jones.
Like, I know, but I'm talking
That's
about
not fair to this kid.
I'm not trying to. Oh God, he's the next Dwayne. No, we should write that. No, I'm just saying the 6'3", that sounded about right in terms of the 210, something along those lines.
It was close. Wade was stronger coming out of Marquette than Cam Jones. Because Dwayne Wade had 6% body fat at 212. He was strong as an ox, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Cam Jones is only 202 pounds. I mean, he's muscular. He's going to have low body fat, but he's not that strong. But that being said, he's a low post guard. He isn't more of a, perimeter facilitator. He averaged like 6 assists per game, but it's not going to really translate in the NBA because he cannot beat anybody off the dribble. So during the season, when I was doing my evaluation, that was one of the things I kept noting, even from the prior season, was his lack of lateral agility, foot speed, and burst and vertical athleticism. He's lacking in those areas. He went to the NBA Combine and looked completely outmatched, even at the NBA Combine. He couldn't get past anybody off the bounce. The couple of buckets that he was able to get are going to come off ball. He did get to his wheelhouse in the mid-post low block, but are you going to spend a 20th pick on a player that's going to play out of the mid-post for you and not be your lead guard facilitator? And his wingspan, I mean, it's decent. It's 6'6". It's not bad. But he still came in, like I said, a little bit shorter than I had imagined. And his hands are smaller than I imagined. He's got 8.5 inch hand size. You want to be over 9 at minimum, really, when you're talking about, elite guards that you want to bring into your organization.
It doesn't scream high value for me. I think the way this shakes out, you could get him lower. The Heat aren't going to trade down either. I don't necessarily think. Maybe they would go to the first pick of the second round if they could. But I don't know. I think that ultimately, as workouts get going, although these are the three names that have came up initially, I think that the pool of players that we narrow down for the Heat are going to include names we don't know yet. That as they start to work out and we hear more, that probably make more sense, I guess, is where I'm going with these three names so far.
Well, again, Adel, projections can always be wrong, but it sounds to me like Cam Jones is a third guard ultimately.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
or a guy you bring off your bench that can
Right.
have the ball in his hands and work out of the mid post for you.
I mean, it almost sounds like you could almost create this guy out of the G League too. I'm not saying quite there, but it does feel like the kind of play. This always, to me, the draft always comes down to this. Okay, and this is the same with player acquisition. And if you watch Moneyball, about baseball and all this, it's just like maximizing, what you can. It's basically, I forgot what they called it in Moneyball, but it's basically exploiting sort of the unseen and these advantages to get players at better value than you should, right? And if you're taking a player who you might be able to replicate some of his skill set out of the G League, then that's not great use of a first round pick, even if he might have the mental makeup and come from the right school. So again, I'm not throwing it out. I haven't watched him enough. I'll watch him more. I'm just saying what you're describing. I gladly throw in the 20th pick to Phoenix to go get an elite guy and sell some 35 jerseys, right? That one's not
It's available.
It's available. Who wore it? Did Clarence Weatherspoon wear it?
Yeah, Clarence Weatherspoon. That sounds right. Maybe Kevin Gamble.
I think Kevin Gamble did. If Spoon did, Spoon took the shot that Mash won't. I actually had an argument with somebody in the front office literally this week about the Mashburn shot. That argument will never die, and I'm always on the wrong side of it because I still say Mash made the right play. Nobody in the front office agrees, by the way, even though Mash still comes to the games. All right, so Adel, let's close this up. I know what your preference is here. What do you think the odds are of the Heat taking any of these three guys?
I think the odds are very remote for a variety of different reasons because two of them won't be available and one I don't think is quite good enough. One last comment on Cam Jones is that he had his worst shooting season of his career last season, shot 31% from three and 65% from the free throw line. So I don't think he's the guy.
Bad free throw metrics in college are a bad sign. Yep. That's a bad, because it shows two things. One is there may be a shooting form issue that you got to address, and the other is that the player may not handle pressure all that well on the road too. So I always look at that because I'm like, you want your college shooters, because remember, pressure in college is a little different at the free throw line because of the one-on-ones. So it does show you a little bit more about a player, I think. All right, to lock in there to get the extra points, and if you're under 70%, it's a concern. I'd be curious to see. I wonder what Dwayne shot, though. I'm probably going to blow up my whole argument by because I bet you he was not a good free throw shooter in college. But of course, then he also missed big free throws in the pros. Dwayne, everybody forgets this. Okay, I love you, Dwayne. But he missed a ton of he would always go 1 for 2 at the end of games. And in fact, in Dallas, nobody wants to remember this. He went 0 for 2.
Yeah.
But they got the rebound anyway.
In 35s in Heat history. Yeah. We were right. Clarence Weatherspoon, Kevin Gamble, Gary Alexander, Willie Anderson, Todd Fuller, Willie Reed, and Malik Allen.
Oh, you can't get Malik's on the staff.
But the number's available.
Katie's going to have to pay Malik for that. Malik, we know some of the assistants live in this podcast. Hey, guys. I don't know if Malik does. Malik, hold out. Okay, hold out. Katie's got the money, man. All he's doing is playing video games. That's all he does. All right, thanks, Adel. We appreciate it. Greg, thank you. We'll have more of these episodes about players that the Heat will not draft coming up any day now. Oh, and that episode with Hannafin, Matt and I, we're going to go through all the Durant stuff too. See if that happens. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.